Drake Nyx, and you are watching Drake Nyx Vision. I am a professional intuitive and soul guide, and I am here to help people like you make the transition into a healthier, higher vibrational world. I have been gone for a while. It has been about 3 years, something like that, since I have posted a video, which is crazy to me because when I started this channel, I thought for sure I would be on it and it would be a continuous trajectory, and it wasn't. It was right before COVID times and all of the other upheavals that we experienced in our lives. And I was not immune to the difficulties that came about with that big time period. So that is why there has been a lack of videos from me over these years. And now that I am coming back into myself, it feels like what I'm observing is that I was on this really beautiful timeline where I was really aligned with my highest path. And then I went into an older timeline, a timeline that was building off of energies from the past, things that I needed to revisit, and even deeper themes of struggle that were really important for me to go through that I think, as you'll see, maybe have supported my transition into a more vulnerable, authentic, and traumatized person. I never experienced the depths of physical illness that I went through during the last 3 years. I started a business and I ran a company and I had employees, and that allowed me to get better insight into the capitalistic and entirely unsustainable systems that we work within and try to constructively build within. But I found all of the major challenges that come with being a small business owner. And there was a lot of other situations that I went through as well. Issues and difficulties in community living. It's interesting because I think that many of us are here to show a different way to go through life. We're here to build new structures. We're the architects of a new reality. And yet we have to go through these experiences where we meet major friction and find the ways that the older paradigm isn't working, both in the ways that other people within our community function, but also within ourselves and the ways that we show up, our own limitations and areas of our growth zones. So I definitely came up against the resistance of my growth edges and experienced fully what it is to be human in some of the more challenging ways. And after some time over the last 6 months or so, I left my business behind. And I have just been concentrating and coming back into my alignment, freeing myself of many of the burdens I placed on myself, and coming back into being a clearer channel for myself and for you. So you're going to see more videos from me. And I am also going to be offering more workshops and one-on-one sessions. So keep your eye out for opportunities to work with me. Today, I wanted to talk about growth and how growth happens over time where it's not linear. And we know this. But sometimes even when we are making the climb up what looks like a straight trajectory, it's not. And there are going to be setbacks, and why it's so important for us to continue up those paths, up those trails, especially when we're beating through either trails that have never been walked before, because each of us are unique. And so the things that you experience are going to be very specific to you and the lessons that your soul has chosen while you live here. And you're going to experience the times that you walk the paths that have been walked before you, whether that is philosophical, religious thought that other people have laid before you that you then get to follow to try to make sense of the world, or the unique paths that have not been walked before. Sometimes we also walk paths of, like I did, like starting a business and seeing how the capitalistic systems work around us, seeing what they might have to offer and how they might benefit society, as well as the ways that there's a lot of aspects of those systems that are not meant to go with us in the worlds that we are creating. And so by journeying through these processes, seeing how these systems work, we can begin to have more clarity on how we we might rewrite the systems in order to make them better. And so as we choose our journey, as we move forward and we try on different roles, different costumes, even, different masks, none of that is wasted time. All of it is helping you to better define the world that you want to live in and the type of person you want to be as you move through this lifetime. The most beautiful thing is that whatever you have inside of you is meant for you. Whatever you are dreaming about, whatever you see yourself becoming, whatever is your greatest desire in the world, it is meant for you. Granted, it is based in the values of caring for self, caring for others, caring for the environment. These are all really important holistic pieces in determining your life path and creating a professional, personal structure that is integrated and will take you into higher dimensions of expression and becoming. Because that is the goal right now. That is the big thing that we're working through, is how do you find your purpose? All of the unique things that are underneath the depths of you, and how do you mold them? How do you shape them? And how do you come into a place where you're able to fully embody that energy so that you can expand out and hold the frequency of higher dimensional earth? Because it comes from you. You radiate it out. You are the anchor for that energy. So in our personal growth, as we go through these journeys, we learn what we like and what we don't like. I led a workshop probably about a year ago, and in that workshop, I outlined my journey of jobs that I've worked. I have worked probably over 40 jobs at this point in time in all types of fields. So over time, I have progressed in my ability to be of service to others through gaining skills that I can then apply to each future opportunity that comes my way. Every opportunity, whether I work that job for a month or 2 years, varies depending on how aligned it is for me in the moment, how much I can even obtain, how much wisdom, the skill set building there is for me there. As soon as I hit my edge and I recognize that I'm not growing in the ways that I want to, then I go to the next step. And so I say this because I think a lot of people will choose the path of least resistance for the mind, the ways that it has been laid out for us of like, this is the path of being an adult, and at least where I grew up, you went to college, you graduated, you got married, you got the job, you had kids, you live in a certain type of house, you take part in certain types of activities. The whole thing very scaped. The way that mental conditioning works as we move through our communities, as we move through society, it shows us this is for you. This is what you are aiming for. And for some of us, for many of us, we don't fit into that framework. And we suffer. We feel like we are stuck. We feel like we have nothing to offer within that paradigm. And what I have called it before for myself was like when I was living in that world, I felt like I was living in a world of black and white. And then I transitioned over into this world of color. At least I had access to it. I got a taste for it and I wanted more of it. And so through the course of my life since my initial awakening, I have spent time kind of jumping back and forth between that world of black and white and the world of color. And now I'm learning like, what does it look like to integrate? What does it look like to step more fully into that world of color and never have to touch back down into that world of black and white? So if we're talking about timelines, the metaphor for this that I've been getting recently is, so I was channeling the other day and my higher self showed me that it's like a wave, it's like an air current. And there is this upper air current where all of our dreams exist, our purpose exists, our happiness and fulfillment exists. And then there is this lower current that we sometimes ride that doesn't feel so good. It's the current where we have our sickness and we have financial problems and, relationship issues. And so we all have those timelines. We all have those different access points of energies that we can exist within. And as we are evolving, the lower timeline, let's call it, is slowly rising up and integrating, melding, and being absorbed by that higher timeline. timeline. And so we're going to see more of that as we move forward, that as you focus on embodying that higher frequency, the other aspects, it's not like we ditch them. It's not like we avoid them, reject them. That's not part of it. We actually need to fully learn to embrace those aspects of our personal journeys so that they can be loved. That's huge. We got to love it. We got to love it, and we got to see it in its fullest. And then we absorb it so that we can more fully step into the bigger, more expanded versions of ourselves. It's amazing to be able to sit here right in front of you now speaking about this, because I feel like I have finally come back into aspects of that higher timeline. And yet for the 3 years that I have been offline, I was in that lower timeline. And there were moments where I saw the world of color. I got to experience that magic. I was far and few in between. I was primarily in a place of stress, anxiety, feeling the ways that my nervous system was fried. It was just very difficult to exist in my system, to be around other people. And I still feel that way in some ways. I'm still having to be really particular about who I spend time with and when, but I find myself coming back more and more online where I want to spend time with people. With that, there is a level of scrutiny of what types of environments, what type of people are going to bring out my best self and help me to move through some of these like big layers that I'm still healing through, to build trust not only in myself, but in other people and life, because that's huge. To be able to heal our ability to trust that the universe has our back. Because when you've gone through a lot of shit, it's really fucking difficult to feel like good things are around the corner and to heal that relationship, because it is a relationship. It's a working, ongoing, co-creative relationship with the divine that allows us to hold that hand of inspiration and be reminded that we have huge purpose and huge potential, and that our dreams are going to be fulfilled. Because when you're beat over and over again by life, all we can focus on is how things have not worked out in the past, and we project that into the future. That's where fears come from. We see in our mind's eye, oh, because I experienced that back there, that must mean my future is going to look like this, but that's not true. And once we can start to see where those images, where those stories, where the deeper traumas that we have experienced, where they exist in our body, in our mind, in our general energy field, once we work through those things, we can dismantle them and then project a different type of future, a different template on the future that we then build towards. I wanted to speak on that for you, of what does your projection look like? What does the template look like that you're putting into the future? Is it based in fear, or is it based on inspiration? And if it is based in fear, it's okay. That doesn't mean that it's going to come true. You still have the ability to do the work right now to override it. And even, with the projection, your worst case scenarios, if you were to experience any of those, like perhaps it is part of your soul's journey that you're meant to experience. And, you'll see if that's the case. So for instance, years ago, I was dating somebody for years, and eventually we got engaged and we were going to have a baby. We did all of those things. And leading up to that, and those years leading up to the engagement and getting pregnant, I knew that I was not in the right relationship. And it terrified me. For some of us, we have read Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. And there is that scene where at the very beginning, she realizes that she is not meant to be with her husband. And she goes into the bathroom and she's crying on the floor. And she knows that she needs to leave him. And from the moment that I read that in that book, I knew I was going to live that one day. And so when I got with my partner at the time, I knew that was eventually going to be me, and that relationship was doomed for failure. And so I was constantly like projecting that into the future and experiencing it in the moment too. Every 6 months, I would just have a breakdown and go to work and just cry and, tell everybody my sob story that I knew I was not with the right person. And then I would just suck it up and go home and pretend like it didn't happen, and just pretend like, oh, everything's good. I'm going to make this relationship work. And eventually, it just wore on me. And I got to the point where I had a miscarriage, and I was really starting to wake up to my spiritual life, to my gifts, my abilities. I already knew that I was a psychic at that point, but I was trying to share that with that partner, and they were totally closed off from it. And I realized this is the time. And I opened up to him about something and got just like the worst response. And I went into the bathroom and I cried on the floor, and I knew like, it has to happen. Like, this is my Elizabeth Gilbert moment. Like, I'm going to make happen. And, I think it was like a month later that I ended up taking the action steps that I needed to leave that relationship. I knew there was some part of me that knew that I was going to experience that soul lesson. It wasn't just the projection. It was a deep knowing. And it's not like, I know that I was meant to be in that relationship. There was no way that I could have just like positively thought my way through to make that relationship work. As much as I loved him when I was in it, and I love hard, I knew that eventually I would have to untangle myself, and that it would be really painful, and that it was going to be a major catalyst for my life, for me to step forward into that world of color, that world of vibrancy that I knew deep inside of me that I was meant for. And it majorly fucking happened during that time period. I burst forth from my pain into such a beautiful, beautiful life. And so all of that is to say is that there are some times that we have our soul lessons that we do feel in our heart that we are going to live. Sometimes it is just fear that is projected, and it has nothing to do with the life that you're actually going to live. Sometimes it's genetic. It is inherited fear of things that have happened to the people that have come before us. And so that is something that we have to look at as well. Like, if every female in your family has experienced abuse, there might be a fear that you too will experience a similar type of abuse. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but it means that you have to look at yourself and see where that lives inside of you so that you can dismantle it and take action steps to live in relationships that are really aligned and healthy and honor you. As we look at how my relationship, that past relationship where I was projecting, that was a growth opportunity for me as well, where I knew that there was going to be discomfort, and I continued to walk the path because I knew that I had to. I knew that it was meant for me. And so I lived that life for some years. I cut myself off from everything that made me feel alive in search for a healthy relationship and search for long-term security. And I was hoping that I would find it there. At the end of the day, that relationship didn't work, but I grew so much from it. Anytime that you feel like you have taken on a life path that isn't quite for you, maybe you feel like you've wasted years on the wrong relationship, career, living in the wrong place, remember that everything that you choose is for your highest purpose and your highest good. There was something about that experience that you needed to learn to help you to see what needs to come next, how you might alter your decision making to come into a future that you're going to be happier with. Those moments that you're like, oh, I'm working this job, I'm doing this thing that doesn't feel good, it's giving you friction. The friction is helping to polish off the edges so that you can more clearly see who you are, who you're becoming, and who you want to continue to create yourself to be. So that's the big takeaway for today, is growth edges and growth opportunities and life choices, where just because you choose something and it doesn't feel in alignment doesn't mean that you're not on your path. So if you're in that place right now, which I'm sure many of you are, we're all at different levels on our journey, remember that it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but around the corner, there is going to be a path. There is going to be a moment where you'll see that light at the end of the tunnel and you'll change course, you'll change direction. Right now is a moment that you can begin sensing, owning, feeling into where are those areas where you are uncomfortable, and start writing about it. Start talking about it more of I see this aspect of my life that doesn't feel in alignment. It doesn't feel like who I really want to be. It doesn't feel like the person I want to be around, which I know that can be so scary to acknowledge of I love this person or I love this career, but there's a part of it that isn't working for me. allow yourself to feel into it. Allow yourself to feel the emotions. I remember, even though I knew that relationship that I was in was not right, I was in a session with somebody else who was doing the type of work that I do with clients. And she said, who would you be if you weren't with this guy? And I broke down and I was like, I would be a fucking goddess. And it was so painful to admit that. And I just cried and cried and cried because I didn't want both things to be true. I wanted to be the goddess that I knew that I was supposed to be, but I also wanted to keep my partner because I loved him. And having to come to terms with that honest truth was really difficult for me. So I know that some of you also have that, where you're going to have to deal with some difficult truths. You're going to have to be honest with yourself. Eventually, you will find the courage that you need to take the next step to get you out of that situation and to move on. Don't put too much stress on yourself to feel like you need to make a decision today. You don't have to. It'll all align when it's meant to align. So there's the piece of identifying what's not working, which can be scary and hard and painful. More excitingly, though, on the other side of that, identify the things that you really do want in your life. Identify what makes you happy? What makes you feel alive? What is the type of work that if you could be doing anything at all, if you could dream really big, what would you be doing? Write it down, dream it, believe it. Allow yourself to come into the energy as if you're already owning that. Feel it in your heart. Even if people are like, that's so silly, you're never going to do that. Fuck them. Allow yourself to dream and allow yourself to imagine and embody just the dream of it, because that energy is what's going to help to pull you out of situations that you might be in and to pull you into more growth opportunities of trying new things. What are activities that you've always dreamt about doing but haven't quite got yourself to do yet? So for me, I've always wanted to belly dance and I just haven't done it. And I finally went to my first class a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like really trying to make an effort to go every week. And I know that I want to be more of a performer. So I'm practicing spinning poi and trying to get into more fire dancing. And these are just little seeds that have been planted in me that I know that for me to feel like my most authentic, expanded self, I need to step into. So I invite you to explore, to write, to dream, to meet up with people that will expand your mind, go to workshops, things that you're interested in to build your skill sets, your knowledge, every little thing that you bring into your life and you learn. It could be growing food, it could be learning how to work on cars, it could be learning a new instrument. Put yourself in those opportunities to just start today, because there's never too late of a time to start something that you're curious about that could lead you into the most amazing, vibrant path you could ever imagine. Might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you could find yourself in the place that you really want to be. Which reminds me, this brings up a subject that I've been thinking about a lot, feeling like we're running out of time, feeling like, oh, I'm too old to start that thing, or I missed my window of opportunity to really thrive, be successful, find fame, whatever it is that you're looking for. Time, as we know it, is going to be changing. And the years to come, we will see that as we step into more of an expanded state, linear time will seem less concrete. And I also want to remind you that wherever you are right now, when you do find your success, it's going to be at the right age. It's going to be at the right moment. It's going to be perfectly timed, orchestrated. You're going to see it and you're going to feel it when you step into it, that you chose this moment for a very specific reason. You chose this age for a very specific reason. And it might not be apparent to you until you get to that age, till you get to that moment of success, but just trust that everything is falling into place at the very right time for you and your soul's progression. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. I have so much more to talk about. I am so excited to be back here on YouTube, and I'll be posting pieces of this onto Instagram, maybe TikTok, but I don't know. We'll see. As a reminder, I am taking clients on. I'm starting at a lower rate just as I build my practice up. Please get in touch with me if you are looking for a mentor, regular sessions. I would love to work with you. Prices will be going up in the next month or two, so get on my schedule now. Thanks again for watching Drake Nyx Vision, and I hope you have a beautiful day.